actually have it confirmed today as the Biden-Harris campaign held a press conference with quote-unquote special guests right outside of the courthouse. Now, here's the thing, is that President Biden could have just said this whole time, and this probably would have been his smartest political move. He could have just said, hey, everybody, let's just let this be and let the Justice Department do what it's supposed to do. I believe in our justice system and they will do what they need. He could have stayed out of it, but them holding a campaign rally right outside is absolutely insane. And I believe in that post that I sent there, there's a little bit more about Robert De Niro and him being the quote unquote special guest, a washed up actor that used to be in some good mob movies. Let's take a look at some of these videos of Robert De Niro.
I mean, this is really,
see,
even
before we get
people
into this
over here,
one, can we pause? So I want to hear a little bit about what he has to say, and we should. But I want to point out how in that first video, New Yorkers were obviously being New Yorkers with some quite vulgar comments towards De Niro.
Sure.
And along with that, also notice how he was wearing a mask. Everybody, you can sleep safely tonight knowing that your grandma is safe because Robert De Niro was wearing a mask.
Thank you, Robert De Niro, for showing us the way.
Absolutely. But if you guys have any thoughts on just even the intro of him walking up.
No, it's hilarious. And it's exactly what Democrats are doing right now. They're trying to make this a show. If you didn't actually see there in the background, those were actually people that were part of the January 6th. There were Capitol Police that were there on January 6th. So what the Biden administration did, they sent out these political operatives, essentially. They sent out Robert De Niro, and then they sent out January 6th Capitol Police to divert the attention back to what all of this election is for them. And it is basically democracy. It's time to save democracy because look how bad January 6th was. So that's what this whole show was all about that we just saw there.
Yeah, it goes back to what people have been saying for quite a while now, and it's being proven true time and time again, is that the celebrities that are the most woke and the most anti-Trump tend to be the ones with the most dirt that they need to hide and keep and kept under the rug. We all know about handlers, how the CIA has handlers for a lot of these celebrities. Kanye West had a very public tirade that he launched against his handler, and where he posted screenshots of texts that said, "Let's meet. And if you can relax and you can see your kids, if you can't calm down and do what we tell you, then you're not going to see your kids. And I'm going to put you back into rehab." And Kanye West kind of exploded all this. Hey, we have handlers, and this is mine. And it's pretty incredible. In a second, I want to show you something that I actually uncovered that's kind of endemic of what's been happening with celebrities, especially Robert De Niro.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about a lot of different celebrities' opinions today and people that have even become celebrities. But I do want to make sure we hear a little bit about what Robert De Niro had to say outside of the courthouse, because it's worth, if he took all this time to get out there with his handlers, it's worth hearing exactly the words that were prepared for him. But I do want to point out before we get to this video, we can pull it up because it's quick. But back in the times of the Greeks, they oftentimes would not allow in their court system, which our court system is based on that of the ancient Greeks, mixed with ancient Rome as well. But back in the time of ancient Greeks, they wouldn't allow actors to testify in their courts because they were considered to be, quote unquote, professional liars. Consider that as you listen to this.
It's kind of crazy. It's really crazy. And this thing, Donald Trump has created this. He should be telling them not to do this, but he's just, I mean, this is really, even these people over here are it's kind of crazy.
Donald Trump,
it's really crazy. And this
everything that's happening outside of this courthouse, it's all Donald Trump's fault. And that's what these actors, these professional liars will tell you, is that it's all Donald Trump's fault. Everybody who's mad at you, Robert De Niro, for being a professional liar, oh, that's Donald Trump's fault. Donald Trump being in court, 100% all Donald Trump's fault. Everything that could be under the sun. I mean, they even claimed the border crisis today, inflation today, is all Donald Trump's fault, that Biden could have nothing to do with it.
Well, it's Trump derangement syndrome, nothing new there. And watching Robert De Niro speak right there, I was like, is this Joe Biden 2.0? It kind of sounds just like him. He's barely making a sentence out there. He's trying to make some sense of something that's going on, but he can't. And it's just hilarious to me. But I don't want any of this stuff to distract us from what's actually happening inside the courtroom, because Michael Cohen has indicted himself like 6 times now. He just keeps racking up those felonies, but that won't matter because, the closing arguments just happened. The prosecution absolutely got, slayed, honestly, by the defense. Even legal analysts on CNN said that they fell way short. And we have a clip that we're going to play here in a second. But all of this Robert De Niro, cops coming up from the January 6th event, all this stuff is a distraction to take away from what's happening in the courtroom, because they're going to end up actually indicting or finding Trump guilty at the end of the day. And that's why we're headlining with Secret Services meets with jail officials, because this is very realistic and this will be very unprecedented at the end of the day. If we have a political opponent that's in the front right now, he's beating the incumbent president, and he's going to end up in jail. Very unprecedented, and it's a very serious thing. And people like Robert De Niro just distracting us from that reality.
No,
yeah,
absolutely.
I do want to make a point really quick, because I know we want to get into the Secret Service meeting with the jailers, but to go back for a quick second to this man that we know as Robert De Niro, I want to share something, okay? Because as I said earlier, celebrities that are so anti-Trump tend to be the ones with the most stuff that they want to keep under the rug. And wouldn't you know, there was a sex scandal and a prostitution ring that was linked to Robert De Niro in 1998. And let me just read something very, very quickly. The case uncovers the brutal methods used to snare young women, some as young as 15, into a call girl agency specializing in wealthy, high-profile clients. It also exposes attempt by French government to block an investigation into which might embarrass senior politicians and damage interest abroad for France. 6 people are charged with the running of an international prostitution ring whose call girls entertain the actor Robert De Niro. So it's pretty insane. The agency specialized in tricking or trapping starstruck teenage girls into selling their bodies with the promise of careers and models and actors. And here's the last thing I'll share. Very interesting. When you see that the bodyguard for Robert De Niro is the exact same bodyguard for Sam Bankman-Fried. Well, what could possibly have happened that he has the same bodyguard, which I call handler? Pretty interesting.
Isn't it also interesting, too, that this event was a Biden-Harris event? It wasn't a Robert De Niro event. It was a Biden-Harris event. It was for their campaign. This was a campaign event. This wasn't Robert De Niro on his own accord going out there. I'm willing to bet that there was in some way some level of compensation for him going out there. And yet still the same bodyguard. Really interesting catch there, Fabian.
Yeah. And I have to give it to Dom Lucre for posting that, because he posted that, and I said, that's actually, sorry, he didn't post. He posted a sex scandal one. And, he uncovers some incredible things. And now the whole world is here to see it. An article from 1998 suddenly dug up. And for a reference point, it's the same person who came out now and was paraded in front of the courthouse. And because maybe he's, kind of like a New Yorker, they thought he would do well there. Apparently not, because New York seems to be changing very rapidly.
Yeah, they are. And listen, it's the play that we keep seeing over and over. It's elites, celebrities coming out to say how terrible Trump is. Look, he's in court. He's about to be found guilty. January 6th, the end of our democracy, all in the time of the election. It's the same playbook that they keep repeating over and over. And honestly, the people are fed up with it, because as we'll see in the couple segments, they could care less about this. Even if they find Trump guilty, the American people don't care about that. They care about the fact that the southern border is wide open. Our taxpayer money isn't going to close that up. It's actually going to facilitate that crisis by flowing money into NGOs. Our economy is not that good. I mean, we have problems left and right, and American people could care less about this. And the elites are so disconnected that they go on TV and make fools of themselves.
You're absolutely right. And while I'll continue to say that actors and such are professional liars to some extent, and what I mean by that significantly is to take what they say with a grain of salt. It makes me so sad when we see these politicians and stuff shuffle out these actors and celebrities as if just because they starred in a movie I liked 30 years ago means that I should consider their political opinion as somehow greater than that of somebody who actually knows what they're talking about. It's absolutely insane to me. But as we do highlight a lot of these people that are these De Niros and these others that speak highly of Biden, it's important to also point out when somebody like Clint Eastwood, or in this case, I just sent this clip in the private chat, Fabian, of Dennis Quaid. And I want to talk about Dennis Quaid here in this clip. I don't think it's that one. There we go. On Piers Morgan, that I believe this just came out today, just to show that there are people, and Dennis Quaid is just going viral recently because he's playing Ronald Reagan, in a new anti-woke movie biopic about Ronald Reagan's life. Take a look and listen at this clip.
I was ready not to vote for Trump until what I saw is more than politics. I see a weaponization of our justice system.
Yeah.
And a challenge to our Constitution, us as Americans, that I don't think we're going to have. And, Trump is the most investigated person probably in the history of the world. And they haven't been able to really get him. People might call him an asshole, but he's my asshole.
Oh my God.
Now,
the way he said that.
I got to admit, I don't love that quote at the end there, but the idea of what he was saying, I think that resonates a lot more with the average person than anything DeNiro had to say. What do you guys think?
It's funny because there are people who are still using, these are low information voters, people who don't really tune in, who are busy doing things, and who maybe haven't been following what's happening, even though it should be in everyone's face, and to some extent it is. But some people are just so busy with their lives, or they're not political, they're apolitical. They still think, oh, Trump's a bad guy. He's kind of mean. Right? Because they're kind of thinking about what they last heard of him, maybe in 2020, 2018, and they're just tuning in. We know a lot of voters just tune in to what's happening in the election a few months before the actual election, and sometimes don't even make up their mind, even though it's pretty wild to think like this, that people don't even make up their mind to the last week. Now, I don't think that this election is going to be the same as all these previous elections. I think we have glaring problems that you can see every time you go out, when you buy gas, when you go to a restaurant, this crazy inflation. But it's just interesting to see how things have changed. And now everything's coming out, and we have this potentially disastrous verdict that's going to spell disaster for, our justice system for the rest of history, to have this blemish if they do convict him. So I think it's a very serious and very important time. And if you have people out there who are apolitical, you need to tell them this is what's happening. You need to get them into the game, get some skin to the game, and, help them see the truth.
I agree with you, Fabian. This is so important for people that are perhaps not so in tune with politics on a daily basis, or even on a weekly basis, and they could care less about all this stuff. They just vote or may not vote at all. But when they see clips like this of celebrities like this coming out and saying, you know what, I don't, I want Trump because things are not good right now. It departs so much from what we're used to seeing from elites like this and celebrities like this, that it's very refreshing to see. And you can see that it's very authentic. And it goes back to my original point that the American people could care less about all of this stuff, all these trials and whatnot. I'm sure some care, but the majority of Americans care about just a couple things. How the economy is going, and am I safe or not in my house? And, you got to just ask yourself, how is it compared to Trump, and how is it compared right now with Biden?
Absolutely. The common question is, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And chances are, I'd be willing, unless you're part of the Uniparty, the answer is probably no, you're not better off. But we have other things to talk about. And I think that's a great quote that's on the screen right now. Make sure you guys are commenting, because I want to know what you guys have to say. But I think this one right here is really what I want to point out. The Biden team knows DeNiro is a distraction. All of these celebrities are a distraction. And so I want to quickly cover what's been going on in the courtroom, as well as surrounding the courtroom in the actual trial. And so this was originally what we were going to talk about here. We're going to cover this quick because I know that we want to wrap up this segment. But real quick is the idea that the Secret Service was meeting with New York jail officials to actually discuss the possibility of Trump being found guilty in this. Thoughts on the idea that Trump actually might be serving in jail in Rikers is what the rumor is.
Well, I'll go real quickly, Fabian. At the very beginning of this trial, it seemed like political pundits and the overall common consensus between people that were politically active and whatnot was that this could never happen. And I was just baffled by that. You have a jury in New York. This case is already going to trial. And now it's just amongst peers, essentially, to see, are they going to convict him or not? So I always thought that this was a likelihood thing. Now we're getting into the serious part of it. I feel like this is just a procedural thing, which is very unprecedented, but eventually we would have seen this, because possibly if Trump does get found guilty, then he will most likely have to face some time behind the bars. And what that will look like, we don't know, which is why we are seeing this headline today.
Yeah, I think if they do end up convicting, I mean, just obviously Secret Service, they got to do what they got to do to make sure they cover all corners, right? They do a fantastic job at that. If this happens, I don't see any instance, and Kevin, being our legal expert here on the show, I'd like to get your take on this, is if there is a conviction, there would be some kind of negotiation. At the very worst, some kind of house arrest or some kind of massive fine. But to actually put Khait behind bars and have Secret Service inside of the jail with Trump, which is what the story said, that the Secret Service would have to be in jail with Trump, and then it'd be the corrections officer's duty to protect the secret agents, Secret Service agents, as well as Trump. Imagine being a Secret Service agent to say, hey, for 8 hours or 12 hours a day, you got to go into the jail and just hang out with Trump. I mean, what a wild sight that would be if a picture came out like that. To have Trump in a jail cell with Secret Service around him, but in jail. Imagine that.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And so in terms of my what I have to legally say is an unprofessional opinion, as I'm only a law student and not necessarily a bar certified attorney, is from my understanding, it would be the judge's decision as to what the actual punishment would be. And while there'd be pleading from both the prosecution and the defense as to what a reasonable punishment would be, it would ultimately be the judge's decision. And so what the judge could do is say, they could try to, as long as it doesn't walk the vague line of cruel and unusual, it could be where he has to spend his days in jail in a cell, and then he can go home at night to sleep in a bed, or like, I don't know, but what it could ultimately do is further, just as much as the judges put a gag order on Trump, limiting his ability to speak, they could limit his ability to hold rallies and limit his ability to campaign, limit where he can spend his money. Like, there are so many different ways in which they can limit him as a political candidate. But there is one thing, and this is how I'd like to close out this segment. I don't know if we have it, the Kash Patel segment production. If I sent that, maybe, yes, I believe I sent one that said Kash Patel as the headline. And this is how I'd like to close it out. I don't want to talk about this. I think we'll all agree on exactly what Kash Patel has to say in this podcasting clip. And this is the final thought.
And that's what they wanted, because the judge in this case and the prosecutors know that they'll never publicly admit, if they jail Donald Trump, he's going to win overnight. Mm-hmm. If Donald Trump is found guilty, which, because it's a rigged system, there's a likelihood that he might, they are going to have to allow Donald Trump to stay out on bond while he appeals this bogus trial. Otherwise, this country is going to go nuts.
Well, Trump got the
and that's
yeah, I agree.
I mean, fully agree with him. And like you said, Kev, no reason to disagree here or discuss this any further. We all agree with that.
Exactly. And now we'll come back later, talk about the Libertarian Party chaos and everything that happened there. But we do have to take a quick break and a word from our sponsors.